And give Lismeldy a hand. Let's talk as we do on this. Liz, we started off looking at the Tempest, Derek Jarman's Tempest. He did this way back in 82. This is not a Jerry Springer show. I'm sorry. So did it back in 82. It's very dark, and we started to see the first representation of the characters: Miranda, Caliban, Ferdinand, Prospero. What's your initial impression?
It was weird.
Don't rock on your chair nervously because you're studio audience.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
It was weird because well, usually in Shakespeare's plays, you rarely hear him or see him write about children. They're usually all adults, and I think in this movie or in the play, Miranda, for example, who's supposed to be a woman or a young woman reaching puberty, she looked more like a grown woman. And
she looks like she's been around the block.
Yeah, she had all aspects of a woman. And the father didn't look much older.
A woman of knowledge, right? She looked like she's in her mid-30s.
Mm-hmm.
And Caliban, how did he react to this Caliban character?
Caliban's the father.
The monster.
The monster.
The kind of like the drooling.
The one that was laughing?
Yeah.
Well, I think that he's more of like the realist in terms of like he knows what their reality is, and I think that Miranda doesn't know, and neither does her father.
Prospero's lost in his head.
Yeah.
Right?
So he.
I mean, that's the main thing, that Prospero has this young daughter. He's kind of like the philosopher king, but a little too much of the philosophizing. His brother usurps the throne, puts him on a boat, or I think they put provisions, they put his books on the boat, put his young daughter on the boat, she's 3 or 4 years old, casts him off the sea, and he lands on this magical island. As we could see this as, here she is, now we can start, as a type of realm of the mind. Is he in Fantasyland? Is he clinically insane, Prospero, or what do you see as a deeper metaphor here about study and suspended gratification and realpolitik? What's your major again?
Psychology.
Psychology, perfect. So we talked about how Freud divided up the constituent self into id, ego, superego.
Mm-hmm.
Parse that one out. How could each one of these represent one being?
Well, in this case, he has lost touch with his ego, and usually in psychology, when you are not in tune with your ego, it means that you may have a psychological disorder because your
your public persona. What I see here now is everyone's ego. From how they put on their musculature, how they put on their face, what you decide to wear in the morning or what you decide to wear in your life, all of that. Who is Ariel and Caliban? Who are Ariel and Caliban in terms of psychology? Caliban's certainly the id, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about this pressure too. Anyone? What's the immediate pressure? He's got his revenge. It lands in his laps. His abducting brother and a few other courtiers land in. That's one of our virtual reality guns. Yeah. Augmented reality guns. He makes the storm, shipwrecks his enemies. They all land. But what's really at pressure here before the storm?
And this was before the naked man.
Ferdinand, right.
Okay.
Ferdinand was born out of the sea.
I mean, the main pressure is just trying to I don't know how to say it. it's more like trying to conform still because a lot of time has passed since they did land on the island, and it's more of like trying to conform to this new reality that they have to face. And I think that in trying to conform to that reality, he lost sense of his own reality in his mind. And I feel like to keep you sane, you need to know what's really going on, as in what's actually going on in society, which is just Miranda and him, and then what's actually
And
going on
everyone,
in your
everyone
mind.
are backstabbers and egotists themselves and all of that. But Shakespeare starts out right away in all his plays. King Lear, it's right away discussion about bastards from Edmund and Edgar. I always forget which one is the bastard. But right away in Shakespeare, the heat is on. Chris, well, how's the heat on? Yeah. Shakespeare doesn't dally around. In Hamlet, the dad's murdered. Hamlet has to decide almost first page, what the hell am I going to do about this? What the hell? What's the front burner? Heat's on way high. Water's about to boil. What is this?
You just have that awkward tension between Caliban and
Miranda is pubescent. She hit, and this is why this is kind of unique, because she seems like an older sexual woman, and usually she's played virginally, but Caliban is the monster. He's the it.
Got out of it, and Caliban is just free to do whatever he wants.
But we mentioned the reason why the world loves Shakespeare is because what about his psychology? 3, 2, 1. Yes. Prospero is Caliban. He's alone on the island. Shakespeare's no fool to this, nor are the Jacobeans. There's a strong hint of incest here, right? He's got to get his daughter off the island. No. Have you ever heard that slogan, "No man is an island"? It's exactly, he needs to reintegrate her into a society. And Eric, what falls in her lap?
A man.
Ferdinand.
Yeah.
So perfectly, like all Elizabethans, how do they measure and blend? Because they're big fans of Aristotle. How do they blend these two means together? Do Ferdinand and Miranda start making out?
No, not right away. Miranda was just like observing him for a while, very interested. But I was gonna say before that I think Prospero's Caliban, right? Because the superego's not there anymore because they're stuck on an island.
Right, he's become egotistical.
And that's what Ferdinand represents, like a reintroduction of a super.
His younger self, or an outsider, or society,
still
or
more in touch with society.
right. So what do we have? Let's name Chion. What keeps your interest in this? What is we mentioned revenge, incest, murder. There's some heavy themes in The Tempest. It's like it's percolating. It's there. That's why people still love Shakespeare, because he's way before Freud, but he seemed to hit these things on the head, right? Chion. I gave one. What's the answer? I'm looking for the answer. What's that issue here? Boring little island, boring little man, likes to play his games. He's like you guys on your computer, playing Angry Birds until the sun goes up in the morning. You guys don't do that. I know that. Not letting you go. Come on. What's that debate here? What's at issue here? Guys, we talked about this before in terms of morality. That gentleman who kidnapped 3 women and locked them to the boiler down in the basement. Monet, that was monstrous, right? How far is this from Prospero? Why? He took these women against their will. Prospero is cast. I'm going to come back to you. What's the stretch?
think they're not different?
Well, one's a criminal, and Prospero's not a criminal. He was a victim
But he's still locked up
in his own will, as Liz said, in his own willpower. More, Bella. Come on, be peppy, be opinionated. This is contemporary, people. How is he not different? Well, Bella, what if you had a parent, one or two parents, who just sat around the kitchen table reading books all day long and said, "Oh, do you need lunch money? Oh, no. Go find it yourself." What would you feel about those two parents? They didn't care about you. You say, "Mom, Dad, I have needs here." Maybe you do have a parent like this, some of you guys. But you was like, "No, thank God not." But in some respects, a modern, sensitive parent is a steward of your future, right? Do you feel Prospero was an accurate steward of Miranda's future? Well, circumstance put, she would have probably been killed by his brother. They put him on the island. In a sense, this is the reverse of Hamlet, right? Hamlet loses a father and tries to avenge him. Miranda loses a childhood, right? In a sense, and Prospero's trying to avenge her loss of a childhood in that kind of bourgeois way. What else about this? No phones.
If he's trying to avenge your childhood, incest is out of the way.
Well, it's implied. We're not saying he knows it. He knows it. I gotta get my daughter off the island. I gotta get her out of here. And he's confronted by these two beings, Ariel, which is like, you can see it as a superego or this ethereal thing, his rational side, and Caliban, but we want to do Caliban as the noble savage. Alex.
The incest isn't implied. Ferdinand is Miranda's cousin.
Ah, right.
It's still incest.
First cousin, right?
Yeah, because he's Antonio's son and
forgot
Antonio's
that.
Prospero's brother. It's
Right.
still incest. Prospero doesn't care as long as it's not him.
Correct. And the island, would you say the island of the self has become so insular that he's almost forgotten this moment when his daughter would grow up?
Yeah.
Because I get the feeling, because there's talk about Ariel's slavery and Caliban's slavery, I got a feeling that Prospero's in hog heaven. What do you think of this?
I agree.
It's a groovy place to be in a tropical island and
He's
like.
created a kingdom of his own. He had a kingdom taken from him, and he rebuilt a world where he can rule.
A better one, Jonathan, because it's one of fantasy, right? And no, answer. And what about revenge? That human emotion. Come on, guys, it's Monday, but we got to talk. That's what discussion in the West is about. That's why people go to law school and understand how to debate the law and science and medicine.
Oh.
You're not technocrats. Liz.
Okay. Well, given socialization, I think that when he was with his brother, I think like the social norms was, religion. And I feel like he just wants to comply with his religion in the sense that he knows that incest is wrong and it's in the Bible, and he knows that no matter where he goes, those values are still to be kept.
But I think, Liz, he doesn't need the Bible to tell him that incest is bad.
But
I think it's
some, during that time, that wasn't seen as a problem, but like religious.
well. Look at Queen
was.
Elizabeth has reputed that she's. Holy smokes! You don't even want to get into the theories behind that. I don't know it completely, but she might have been a child by incest or whatever. Is anyone?
Yeah.
So it's this murky blue blood world of who's what and what's going on. How is this? Look up here, gang. How is this island, Yoshi? Boring? I think it's not boring for Prospero. Is it boring for you? This island? Why not? Guys, you all have a dark side. We talked about Jung. You all have a shadow. You effectively, for most of your life, have been cramming that guy down. But it'll come out in obsessive compulsive disorders. It'll come out in drinking. It'll come out in whatever. You probably don't have these excesses. But the shadow self has got to be expressed. We're on Prospero's Island. He is so Apollonian, so rational with his graphs and his neuromancy and all of that stuff, geomancy, neuromancy, whatever, that he's repressing the fact that he wants revenge and he wants his daughter off the island. Let's look at this Caliban, Liz. Many colonial theorists have looked at Caliban and said, well, this is a cannibal. This is a North American or Caribbean character. Is this an unfair portrait of the Caliban?
I think it is because they're taking. See, the thing about it is, if when you come from a society where people don't really see you, they'll think he's more of like a barbarian because he does not comply with what society needs of their people.
Did
So,
the Europeans see that in the North American, Native American Indians?
yes, they did, which is why they use and abuse them in the way that they did.
There was an admiration, and Montaigne and a couple other sources admired these noble savages. I guess Rousseau did a whole book about this idea of the noble savage, uncorrupted by European decadence. But there's also a fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
That these people have to be wiped off the earth because they don't believe in their systems of
Yeah.
belief. There was an attempt to enslave them, but they were unenslavable because they knew how to disappear right into the wilderness, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're going to cover. Maron's here. We're going to cover what else? Chris, how are we going to conjoin? Oh, I wanted to conjoin this great book called Gone to Croatan, which is about disappearing into the woods. What keeps Miranda from disappearing to the other side of the island? Don't you think she senses this urgency of getting off the island herself?
She can't do it alone.
She could just wander. A lot of people, Prospero did alone. He survived alone.
Yeah, but
She could just pick up. And gang, I contend, Lost is a version of this. Who saw the series Lost? No one saw it? That was like 6-7 years ago. What? Which one?
One person.
One person saw Lost. Okay. That was a popular series like 6, 7, 8 years ago. It's a version of The Tempest in this. Christopher, what is Miranda's Caliban and her Ariel?
she definitely senses that she's in danger, and she kind of knows she has to go, but she doesn't know what to do or who to confide in.
Because she loves her dad,
Yeah.
and dad loves her, and there's everything's above board there. But then things will become more difficult as you go on. Is this an interest? No cell phones, dudes. I'm gonna collect phones. What else about a Miranda? No question for question. Answers for questions. What makes her an interesting character?
Dark side.
What's her dark side? She has libido. She would probably, well, if the movie hadn't made Ferdinand naked in the beginning, she would have ripped his clothes off, right? Who slows those two young lovers down? And why? Philosophically. They're on an island. They're in tropical paradise. They should be making babies already. Well, who slows them down, Liz?
The father. And also, like,
But they show restraint within, don't they,
I mean,
Alex?
her innocence as well, because she sees this man and like she's just exploring, like she's just like, because we still have to keep this in mind that she's still a child, so she technically has no sense of thought. She sees the world as black and white. There's no gray matter in her form of thinking, and so which is why her father is there to sort of keep that balance and to kind of just strip away from her, take away her sense of
Groovy. We're going to have to
thought.
stop this to give Liz a hand. We have to stop it.